Welcome to NeedleXChange, the stories behind the stitches. My name's Jamie Chalmers, aka Mr. X Stitch, and in this episode I'm interviewing Charlotte Wood, a mixed media artist known for creating emotionally honest storytelling. Charlotte trained through an MA in embroidery and works across hand, machine and sculptural textile approaches with a deep curiosity for how craft and experimentation collide. In our chat we go deep on her making, learning the rules before breaking them, moving from perfectionism towards controlled chaos, what commercial embroidery taught her about speed and being less precious, and how her technician teaching role, plus special effects and foam fabrication skills are shaping what she wants to build next. As it's the second part of our NeedleXChange, we have some cultural touch points as well, which I still can't say. And it's just a great chat. Charlotte's a lovely person with a lot to say. I'm sure you'll enjoy this one. This episode goes a bit long, but it's all good. If you want somebody else who practices what they teach, then listen to episodes 59 and 60 with Pete Tarrant, the digitizing demigod. And if you like the show, be sure to share it with someone else who might be similarly inclined. I'll be back next week with somebody else from the world of Stitch. But until then, enjoy the show. I wanted to ask you, right, because so you did a master's in embroidery.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it was really good. What kind of set me off it was actually to do with embroidery as the masters at Manchester was because of Jenny King, because she came in, who's like, obviously, you know, she's like one of the judges on Hand and Law. She came in to do a talk when I was at Bournemouth doing fashion, and my work was really textiles based. When I was doing fashion, I had tried embroidery and stuff, but I didn't know that much about it. You know, I did like the general thing, like doing a bit of hand embroidery and then kind of asking people to help me do the machine embroidery, but none of our stuff was set up for it in fashion. And then she came in and like it just blew my mind that she had these machines, these old machines, and she was sat, you could just so eloquently like, so, and then I looked in and I was like, oh, they have all these machines at like Manchester School of Art. So I was like, I want to go there. And it was a hard transition. I did it over the 2 years because like it cost the same as over 1 year, but you get all the same facilities. So I was like, you get twice as much. I was like, I did it over 2 years, but the first year was like, I was on antidepressants for too long and they just didn't help me creatively. And I found it hard to transition from like fashion and from an undergrad to like a master's. And then embroidery, it's so like different. So I kind of like struggled a lot. I remember just like handing in the same work a few times and they were like, you've handed this in already, we've already marked this. I'm like, oh God, no, because I was trying to kind of figure out stuff and I was trying to like learn the techniques. That's one side. The technicians are really, really helpful in showing me. Obviously a master's is different than an undergrad where they're kind of showing you through a program of stuff. You only really can like ask the technician to maybe show you something specific. So you're not really kind of shown a wide variety. And then like, it was also kind of figuring out my style because I was kind of going from like, you know, I want to be a menswear designer doing a fashion brand to actually like, I want to do embroidery and I want to maybe just focus on the embroidery. And the work I produced was more along the lines of like fine art in a way, or like art craft. I worked on like a big tapestry, but that only kind of came together in the second year when one of my tutors was really good saying, because I kept trying to go, I want to tell stories, but I'm really struggling with the stories. So I worked on different things like quite like autobiographical or like about celebrities. And I was like, I just can't think of like the story. And he said, you don't need to write the story. You can do it on another story. Because I think he's called Clinton. And his work was all on James Joyce. So I was like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. So I started doing it on just an author I like, which was like Hunter S. Thompson. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I mean, I was a lot younger. So it was like sex and drugs was like one of the main kind of draws to it. and then, but also just like, I mean, I'm not massively political, like not in my own work, but I liked the themes of kind of like consumerism and kind of capitalism and kind of like, those kind of themes. So it was about that. So I really liked the work I produced. And then from that work, when I went to set up my own business, I used that kind of work when I applied for the studios. I'm at Neo Artist Studios. And I really remember them saying like, oh, we don't normally let like like fashiony people in, but because when we saw your work, we thought, oh yeah, no, it is more like art. So I was like, oh, okay, I've been like approved by other artists. And then I had a break from that, and now I've kind of come back into that way of working.
Yeah, because it's interesting. So prior to that, then you did fashion design and technology. Was that like, if we go all the way back to wee little Charlotte, do you remember, I mean, did you have any interest in embroidery or anything when you were a kid?
No, but years ago, I found a portfolio of work I'd saved from some of the stuff, and my textile work is really good. My embroidery is really good. I hated textiles in school, though, because I was like, all it is how to set up a machine. It's so boring. How to set up a sewing machine. It's really difficult. I didn't like it. So now, because I teach at the uni, I always I'm a bit more like motherly in the regard to how to show people. I'm like, don't let this ever be a hindrance to you learning it. I'll happily set it up and do the technical stuff. You just get used to using it. And obviously, if you want to pick it up as you go along, more the techniques, I'll show people the how to set it up. But I'm it's such a barrier to entry, I think, to sewing. But no, I always wanted to do architecture. So I did architecture at uni for a year, and I realised I wanted to do something where I'm making. It made me decide what is actually more important, and it's the making than the design. So then I had time off, and I did reflect back, which is that one of my aunties was really helpful. She helped me make because she had a sewing machine. She helped me make clothes, and I'd make clothes for my cousin, and I'd be like, it's a top with a matching skirt and a matching handbag and all this kind of stuff. And then I thought, at the time, even when I was at uni doing architecture, I was making clothes and just wearing them. I wasn't thinking, oh, this is a thing. To be honest, I kind of looked down in it in the way of thinking it's going to be so hard to make money doing fashion. It's quite a woman job, and they're not paid as well, where if I'm in architecture, it's slightly more secure. It's maybe more of a man's world. The pay is going to be better. It's more of a job. But at the end of the day, when I was there, I thought, if you don't enjoy it, if you're not happy, if I'm not happy doing it now, I'm never going to make a success of it, because success is more than money. Money's never actually been that important to me. I just panicked growing up and thought, oh, I'll do this because it's going to pay more. But now I'm like, no, I'm happy. I'm definitely happy with the choice I've made and how it's gone.
So when you do a master's then, have
you done a master's degree?
No.
Did you formally study?
No. I'm blagging it. I've been blagging it since 2003. I did a degree in psychosocial studies, right? Which is the strapline was man's influence on society and society's influence on man. And that's turned out to be really useful. Case study, I'm a man doing something that is cross-stitched that little old lady's supposed to do. That's a story we're told, that has a bearing. But I mean, that's come to pass because we did advertising elements and all those sorts of things. But I got a cross-stitch kit in 2003 and thought it was fun, and it all kind of started from there. I found, similarly to you, a piece of embroidery I did that was to do with the Bayeux tapestry back when I was 11, but that was the only needlework I ever did. So mine's sort of I don't know, it's come around in the end. But this is the thing, I've got no formal training. I just know what I like, and now I've been involved in this world for best part of 20 years, which is a ridiculous thing to say.
But then again, if you're asking me what it's like doing an MA, because my MA was in embroidery, and I was very specific on wanting to learn the Irish machine, which is a 200-year-old machine. It's what Jenny King uses in her business. I was really specific, and I obviously, I'm like, oh, but I need to work on my portfolio, so I'll include other machines, which was the Cornelli, which is in a similar kind of field in terms of being really old, being hand cranked, being a bespoke machine, but then I use digital embroidery. But then actually, in terms of actual formal training of embroidery, you got the specific help from the technicians that were great, but overall, you're self-taught. I remember a few years ago when I was doing my own business, I was like, do you know what? I'm watching this thing about a darning foot, and I was like, oh, so I can set this up and buy this darning foot, and I reckon I can do embroidery without hooping it. And I honestly thought I invented this technique until I went to teach on the embroidery course at the University of Greater Manchester, and it's the first thing they learn. And I was like, I thought I invented this. I was like, I remember going home and telling my dad, I was like, Dad, I'm thinking that if I order this, I've hacked the system, right? Don't have to be stuck with hoops, because I work large scale. It's amazing. And oh my God, for years I thought that. And then even on my last year of my masters, I remember them saying to me because I'd left the colour of the thing I was working on. I wanted it to develop over time. I wanted the story to unfold over time. I wanted to start when I wasn't as good and wasn't as confident and get better. I wanted that. So it wasn't all like perfectly planned. It was planned to a degree with room for experimentation. There was a bit in it that I wanted to change the colour, this fireplace in the middle. It didn't throw like your eye right over the scene. And I was like, it's too big to embroider. Plus it's a background. I don't want to draw the attention. I'm drawing the attention to the story in different ways. I just want to change the colour without doing anything. And I remember being like, what do I do? I've just messed it up because I've worked for 6 months on this one tapestry. And then the lecturer said, you can do applique, and I didn't even know how. I'd never used Bondweb, even though that's one of the first things you learn. We teach it to college students. I'd never heard of Bondweb. I was like, what? I remember panicking and like them helping me put it on the place, like ironing it on. And now I'm like, I had a master's degree and I still didn't know that. So I don't think, and plus I know very specifically a lot more about what I'm interested in, which is free machine embroidery on the machines I have. And like even I wasn't even that into digital embroidery. Because I work commercially using it, and I just saw it as like workwear, and it was really boring and flat and not interested. But it was only the last few years, especially doing the hand in lock and having access to the one at uni, that I've gotten really into it and developed it like much further than that. Now I love that.
Yeah. There's some funny
You've
parallels.
got to be a lifelong learner.
Yeah, you have got to be a lifelong learner. I swear to God. Yeah, I'm having to learn about lift servicing at the moment. That's fun. It's just what happens.
Dangerous. That's high stakes.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. But it's interesting. I feel like there are some parallels with the architecture connection in some ways, because it's almost like, particularly when it comes to digitizing things, it is a micro engineering project that you end up with. And I suppose then, from what I'm reading, what you're saying, you're then applying like an illustrative style or a free motion style to something that then is deliberately executed by a machine, which is an interesting...
Yeah.
I was thinking about Harriet Riddle, who I had on a few episodes ago, and she's free machine portraits, and she just sits there and she literally like moves the paper, draws the pictures. She's like crazy talented.
Yeah.
And there are some parallels, because I've seen your work. I remember the guy with his ginger bits out. You know, that one's a bit of a standout piece of yours as well.
Yeah.
Little motif, you know, and so you've got that illustrative style there. But I guess in some ways that's a bit like architectural drawings, isn't it? You're making the designs in one format and then they're being executed in a different format.
Yeah. And it's like a lot about kind of control, because I think like I've tried to work on having so much control in recent years. I know that it's given me a lot of issues like growing up when I look back. I don't think I'm an overly controlling person in general, but I do know like it's hard to you put so much expectations to have control over things and want to kind of, in your own life and in work, you want to make something, and then you kind of put so much pressure on it to be a certain way that it kind of like hinders like your creativity and growth. Whereas when I'm working, especially say like when I'm working with a digital machine, I'll often just put all the threads on the colours that I like and just randomly plug them in. I don't assign them to colours so that it comes out in a different way. I kind of like lose that control of it, and I'll do different stuff to it. Sometimes I'll just skip like thousands of stitches at a time. I also use different techniques to like kind of destroy the work, to kind of like lose that element of control where you kind of like experiment, which doesn't come naturally to me. I see some students who are like working like a crazy way like that, but I was a perfectionist. Like my work was a perfectionist. I wanted to hone my skills and get really good and work at it. Whereas I like that other element now of going like, it takes a lot of confidence to kind of lose that control and like play around with it, but you end up with something better in a way. Or even if it's not aesthetically better, it's been on more of a journey, so it kind of adds like other layers to it.
Yeah, there's chaos and there's control, because you're providing a controlling structure, but it's almost like building a house and then going, do you know what, let's just miss out that staircase or something.
Yeah. Which it sounds a lot like the house I'm just buying.
Okay, that'll be interesting. She starts redesigning her entire house. It was making me think as well of like, there's certain artists who will do like, you know, either use found objects or put deliberate elements of chaos in there to make a sort of alchemy that means that you don't necessarily know what the outcome is. You can best guess it. But like you're deliberately doing that. It's almost like you're like micro sabotages, because then that just gives the universe a chance to have a crack at what you're doing as much as you. Or something.
Yeah. And like I kind of work in a sketchbook style as well, where I'll start sampling, but pretty much straight away those will be included in the final piece. Like I want to feel like I want to change it. I'm very indecisive. I change my mind all the time, but I like development and growth. So I'll kind of do it and then I'll go, oh, I want to change it. I want to make this bigger. I want to change the colours, but I don't discard the work. I think everything's worth keeping. So I'll include that all in the final piece, basically, which can make it really difficult to like join them together because you're working with so many different materials and stuff like that. But I just like that kind of, I like the layering of telling a story through multiple lenses. Do you know, like, what I really like about work as well is a lot of like the works I really like literature and books and kind of film and all that stuff. When I'm kind of enjoying them, I'm really thinking about the person who's wrote them. I like that element of like their life kind of coming into it. So I just kind of like having these other pieces of like, you know, like there's a piece of me in there and my development and my journey is in there. It's not just like, this is it. Like, that's how I like view other people's work. Do you know, like you kind of see like them in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me, I did English literature A-level, right? About 400 years ago now. And somewhere down the line, someone finally told me that the point of English literature A-level was for you to understand the context in which the work was written. And I reckon we'd gone...
I thought it was opposite. Go on.
No, but this is the thing. I'd been like, I don't know, 9 months into it before someone said that. So I thought we just had to read texts and analyse them and pull the extracts out of it. But it was very much more about the context and the circumstance and stuff. And you're like, oh, right. So actually that makes a lot more sense now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you mean like the context, like the place in history and all those kind of stuff.
You know, or like, for instance, even when I went to see an exhibition of like Miro, this abstract artist, I went to see an exhibition of his, which was like in North Carolina many years ago. Whatever, and I looked at it and I was it feels a bit like A-level art, but I was like, but he was the first guy that ever did it. And then you're like, oh, right, okay, all of a sudden, do you know what I mean? It's like, because it's that context has the extra value. And no one ever made me think critically that's the way you're supposed to approach this stuff. But that's almost like what you're saying there as well, is you're giving
that
people...
like John Miro.
Yeah, that guy,
yeah,
you know.
Okay, I went to his exhibition before.
And it's abstract stuff, and it's not necessarily the most complex or whatever, but he was frontier of doing it at the time, back in, I don't know, the 40s. Sorry, art history people doing that wrong.
Yeah.
But it's that thing, isn't it, of you're giving people the opportunity to see you through the work as well. It's not just some fully realised gift from God or whatever that you don't have to think about. So you're kind of...
That's what I want to see. I got this book, because that's why I was a bit shocked when you said, oh, about the context. And I was thinking you mean like about the author is what's important in English literature. Because a few years ago, I got this book and I do think about it a lot. And it was reviewing like famous works by people. So like, I can't think, like Charles Dickens and James Joyce and that kind of stuff. And it was saying, like, the kind of preface to it was saying, oh, normally when you have a review, it's about the book. They don't really talk about the author and their lives and how they've come about writing the book. And to me, I was like, this is the most interesting part. Like, if I go to a quiz, I'm terrible at quizzes, but Dickens is my go-to. I don't actually like Dickens stories. I just feel like I just find the fascination of like how his life, how he's growing up, how he growed up affects like all those works that he's written, and how the book is still so accessible, and how at that moment in time, obviously everyone was struggling in like Victorian England or Dickens England, whenever. And then it was like how it fit in because everyone wanted to have a better life, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I just find that kind of stuff, like, I find the bit behind the scenes interesting.
Yeah, I got lent a book which I haven't finished reading yet that's called something like Why Your Kid Can't Do Art. That's not the right title of it, but basically it looks at all this classic art, and a lot of the time there'll be art that you think your children can do, but it explains why your children can't. Because on the face of it, like a Jackson Pollock, you go, well, anybody can splatter some paint. But then it goes behind the scenes and it says, but the reason why Jackson Pollock was doing it and the reason why your kid can't be Jackson Pollock is maybe that context, or maybe there's this political subtext that you can't understand unless you pay attention to the artist. And that kind of layer is really interesting.
No, definitely. I was really into surrealist art and I did art A-level. And I just remember so vividly watching or reading something about Picasso, and it's saying you have to kind of learn how all the rules before you can break them. And bear in mind, I was a perfectionist. I was a try-hard. I got A's in everything. I was really, really neat. I remember just thinking like, what? That's so weird. Why can't you just break the rules? Why do you have to go through all the stages to learn how to draw really well to then just do that? But you do. I had to spend years learning how to do it, not to toot my own horn, but, you know, by my own eyes, I feel like I've got really good skill on the machine at certain points. I've maybe let it slack in recent years since I focused on digital, but I got really, really neat at this and that kind of thing. But you have to then I started going like punk DIY, break the rules, like make things as quick as I can. Don't like spend ages like image sourcing and trace. I traced around everything, even though I was an okay drawer, just because I was so unconfident of like getting it wrong. Like, who's assessing it? I don't know. But like, I would do that, and then I would spend more time then transferring that onto something that I would then embroider on, and then kind of disguising how I've kind of transferred it on and all that kind of stuff, rather than just going, no, I'll free draw, because if I don't, it's just like a machine's done it. It's not really human. I need to put myself into it. And now I'm like, oh, that, like, even though, like I mentioned earlier, like I worked commercially and I put a lot of pressure on myself to kind of bring the time down to make things like faster, that sounds like, oh, that's not good for creativity. But actually it allowed me the time and the space and the confidence to let go of the control, so that I wasn't going, I need to make this perfect like this, and spending ages and ages to do it, rather than just do it and actually think, oh, do you know what, this is better because it's a lot more real. And what I want to show through my work is realness, it's emotion, it's like still connected, like human connectivity. So I think like, but I needed to go through all that journey. I couldn't just do that at the start, because it would be probably meaningless. It would just be like, I've not learned how to control the machine properly. Here we go.
Yeah. That's the exact point, isn't it? Yeah. Being a commercial, I don't know, what's the technical term? What's the correct term for what you were doing? Commercial embroidery studio, fashion embroidery studio?
I kind of say it in two senses, because I did have my own business where I was working commercially. I was kind of doing more orders, and then I started selling. So even though, it was still up to me to kind of like make my own creations and kind of like drive the vision and that kind of stuff. But then I also worked for a company that was like on the other end of the market, because I was trying to aim for like slightly more middle of the market with my work. They were more like workwear, make stuff as cheap as possible. So then I had like, and that's when I was doing like digital embroidery, where you literally just manning like multi-head machines where there's like maybe 10 embroidering at once, and you just like repeating the design and taking it off and that kind of thing. So I kind of had like both sides of it.
Now, I was going to say that second gig sounds a bit like when the Beatles went to Hamburg and did like 4 shows a day for like a year or whatever, just like putting in the reps. Not that exciting, but I mean, they got pretty good at putting in the reps.
Yeah, being less precious about it, because before that I'd worked on things where I'd put loads of time onto it, like, and then to just kind of be less precious and go, do you know what, like, we're selling this, I'm trimming the thread, yeah, it's fine. Like, you don't have to like micro, like I know that a lot of times when I was working in that industry, I got told that I was slow, and it took me quite a while to get fast. And then I had them come in, assess me and go like, I don't know why I'm being slow, because I'm constantly working, right? So I don't know. And they were like, you're spending too long folding the clothes, you're spending too long doing this, like everything. I kind of spent too long on it, and it just led down to like perfectionism. I wasn't moving slow. If anything, I was probably moving erratically fast, but I was just spending time like being a perfectionist. So I think working in those kind of things is good to kind of like, if that was like your issue, like for me, it was my issue when I was younger, it helps a lot.
And are you still actively doing that line of work as well?
No. So I kind of did that alongside doing my own business to kind of give me, because it was up and down with the money, to kind of give me a steady income. And it was great because you kind of just locked in and you're doing something physical and you're switching your brain off, or you could focus in your head on your own business and problem solve it and that kind of stuff. So it did work well, like alongside it. As like another part-time job kind of thing.
And the work you were doing for yourself, your own business, are you still actively doing that?
So yeah and no. Like, I'm not trying to earn money from it anymore. So if that happens, if I have opportunities where I can make money from it, then yeah. But at this moment in time, I'm seeing it as like, I'm going to make that art that I think is authentically me. And hopefully then the right thing will come along in the longer term, rather than trying to just make money now.
So you've got the gig at the uni, and that's like the main
That's
thing.
full time. So that's full time. And then I do other work like on top of that, which I'm just at the moment like classing as art.
Yeah.
Like art, like work on top.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting journey. I admire it. I'm interested to know what kind of like a teacher you are.
So I'm a technician, and I don't know, it's hard to say, but people have said I'm good with the students. I think I think about learning a lot and like the barriers to it, and trying to be, I'm saying, I'd always thought of myself as like maybe not the most empathetic person, but I think it was like I didn't always understand people, but I've spent a lot of time trying to understand people more and trying to like think about these things. I do know like I do talk a lot. I think I like over explain things, but I kind of say at the start and try and tailor it, even though I find it hard, to the student, because I like loads of information and I like the information given in different ways, like all kind of at once. But I understand that like that's overwhelming for lots of people. But that's how I am. I'm like, I want the repeat, and then I want it to like be dispelled down and down to like the take home, where I'm like, okay, this, but I've got all the other stuff. And plus I like learning. I have a really bad memory, I think. I like learning how things work. So I'm a bit more like, okay, well, I'm going to explain how this works. I'm not going to explain necessarily like, especially because stuff like if you say you teach you something about the machine, the embroidery machine, you're like, well, you might not have this kind at home, so there's no point me saying you need to put this here, this here, this here. I'll just explain to you. This changes this. Like if you press the embroidery button, it puts the feed dogs down, which gives you control of the machine, so you're in control. So that's why you can go round. Whereas if you want the machine to be in control in straight stitching, you kind of like have the feed dogs up to pull it in a straight way, like the machine's more in control. So I like thinking in that way, which I understand like not everyone does, but I'm still learning how to do it. I've been here for like 2.5 years, maybe just over 2 years, but I love it. I think it's a perfect job for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm curious because, yeah, you're a charismatic person. You've got a crazy little skill set going on there. And I'm interested to know how far you're allowed to let that go in. Because, again, like a lot of the stuff we've talked about, you know, pragmatism, being able to look back on your journey, knowing that you're not going to win all the battles that you take on. I don't know whether you get the opportunity to impart those bits of wisdom at all, or very, very much like I've set your machine up for you.
Yeah, so I do in a way. I love being around the students, and then it's like that stage in their life where they're learning and things is exciting and they're still developing things. And it's quite nice sometimes to know that like I'm finding it easy because I know all this stuff, but they're not, but you can help them find it easier. So stuff like that is really nice. But also I'm just learning, like I've learned so much. It's really good because you feel like there's a community that you can help to like influence your work, like from like other lecturers, other staff members doing their own work, or just like helping you inspire yours. I had I set up like kind of informal tutorials about my hand in lock work at various stages with say like staff on fine art and that kind of thing. So I had different like inputs where I was kind of like getting education for free, and you're around people who are like in education and love it, and you're with students who are kind of like learning stuff. So you're in like a really good environment to like fuel you creatively. Plus during my time here, I started as a textile technician on embroidery, but they didn't have the hours to kind of give me a full-time job. So when they offered me a full-time job, they said that I can go on to SFX, like special effects. And I'd been really interested in stuff like that. I'd even done like a couple courses at uni when I studied fashion, like extra outside courses into SFX. I'd made stuff like out of latex and that kind of thing. So I'd always find it quite interesting. So I was like, oh yeah. So and I think that's how like the character of the man, how he's 3D, it kind of like allowed me time during uni to kind of go, well, I can technically get away with working on this because I'm improving my skills relevant to my new job, like I know the embroidery bit, yeah, but like I haven't done much 3D work that isn't fashion, where they're making models of stuff. So that's been really good. And I like hope to develop that more. I'm learning at the moment more foam fabrication, so making things out of foam, so then you can kind of make something bigger that's a lot lighter, rather than my man is stuffed, so even though he's quite light, it's still like if you made him on a bigger scale, it's like a lot heavier.
That's crazy interesting.
Yeah, it's really good. They make really good what they get taught, the skill set and what they produce. I just always think, oh God, it just looks so good. Like on SFX, I've always found it really interesting.
I don't know whether you can find it right, but there used to be a TV show in America that was called Face Off, and basically it was like Bake Off but for special effects artists. And so they'd get like 2 challenges per episode, but they would be doing all these things, and they'd have to make the silhouettes, and they'd have to achieve certain goals, whether it was alien life forms or whatever. Like, and it was pretty interesting to see all the different ways they go, like molding pieces and making pieces and spraying pieces and all those sorts of things. Like,
yeah, plus the craftsmanship. Yeah, it's just like it's so good because it's like it's so tied into like craftsmanship, where like. I think if you go more on just like the art stream, it's a bit more, the focus is on like the concept, whereas you kind of don't have as much emphasis then on like the craftsmanship or like your techniques. So I find that area really interesting, but be able to use it in an art context. I still exhibit that work I've made there along with other staff members who teach on the course in like art exhibitions, and they're also using it in that way. It's not just like for film and TV. So I just find that like that tie is like really interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what you're going to come up with in 5 years' time now, based on those kind of overlaps, because textiles have a certain limitation, don't they? But if you're able to go beyond that and then still apply surface design, embroidery, Christ knows what other little bits of bells and whistles you'll be able to put on. I could see that guy crying, quite frankly. You'd probably be able to work out how to do that easy enough. Do you know what I mean?
I want to do him bigger. I want to develop further and do him bigger. I was kind of even using this one as a bit of a like test piece because he is smaller. But yeah, I do kind of see that making him bigger.
And have you got artistic ideas percolating at the moment? Is there anything you're actively working on?
Yeah, so I did a January project, right? Because on SFX, I was coming in and I thought, oh, January, it's back after Christmas. Like, it's going to be hard. Like, it's going to be hard, like, to get back into, like, doing things like working out and just doing work and all that. It's going to be a sludge. And then I didn't know I'd done a lot of stuff just before Christmas, like a lot of tidying and organising. So I was a bit like, oh, what else do I do when I come in? Because it was a bit quiet. There wasn't really any students in the first week. And my colleague said, do something fun. And I was like, something fun? So I started working on a piece and I just got obsessed with it. And I had a really good week. I was just going around telling them, well, I've had a really good week. I know it's the first week of January, but I'm working on this piece and I really like it. And I think it's like expectations. I think like when I look back, I think, oh yeah, no, it's because I was thinking I was going to have a bad week. So like I was doing something I loved and I was like, oh, I love it. This is an amazing week. So I was working on like, I just thought, just ease myself into it, do something that's really within my wheelhouse already with a few added things that was like going to grow my skill set. So I'm still working on it. I'm embroidering, like I'm using the colour palette that I worked on recently of one of my dolphins. But this is like florals and baroque, and it's got like cutaway. And I'm going to kind of pad it on a board. So I'm going to cut out a board of like a baroque shape to fit in with the embroidery. And then I'm going to pad it very similar to the technique you would use to make a headboard. And I did tell another member of staff and they immediately said, so you're making a headboard for your new house then? Is that what you're doing? And I was like, no, it's a work of art. I'm going to exhibit it, okay? I was like, well, it's going to go above my headboard.
It's going to be, unfortunately, I've had to turn my house into an art gallery because of the piece
of art.
No, this is you. This will be you. It's like everything I've made is a piece of art now.
Because I was thinking, I don't know whether to have loads of my art in my work, in my house, because a lot of times it's like I've had it in my studio, that's all fine. But otherwise it can give you like stress. Do you know, we're thinking like, I've not done good enough. I've not done well enough. Like I need to do more work. I need to do better. And I don't want to bring it into my home that's supposed to be like a kind of chilled, relaxing space, and bringing this element of like stress about it. But I feel like now I'm at a point in my life where I'm really happy with how things are going. And, you know, if I don't like, if this is it, I'm really happy. So like to then have that work in my house, I feel like it's going to be not stress inducing and like comforting. Like, look at the nice work I've done.
Milestones. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at the things that you've done to get to be the person that you are now. I think that's reasonable. I've got a few. The problem I've got is I haven't done any cross stitching this year for certain. I only did a little bit last year because of life, but
yeah.
I've got some of my older pieces up on the walls downstairs and stuff, just because, they're like milestones there. And I don't look at them and go, oh, they're a bit shit. I go, that was about as good as I could do at the time.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's nice.
We're going to pivot onto some tough questions now, if you'll permit me to find out. Let's get inside your head through the medium of books. Do you have a favorite book?
Yeah, so my favourite book is quite good because it actually ties into my recent work, Man on Chair, which is like so it's based on Leonard Cohen. It's based on a book he has of his poetry called A Book of Longing. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not, but I know he's like a laugh a minute.
Yeah, is that sarcasm? Is he depressing?
That's sarcasm.
Okay. That's why I like him. So, like, I'm not actually. I know he's a musician, and I'm aware of his music, but his voice is like, I don't know. I've never got on with it that well, but I really like his poetry. Like, I like his written voice in it, and he includes like his drawings of himself, and I really like that. Like, you can. As I look into his mental state through the drawings of like how he's viewing himself, I found that to be like really inspiring of my work. And then I like the poetry. It's a lot about like kind of search for happiness. He does write a lot about like romantic relationships, but I think when you consume it in media, I always kind of think, oh, well, if it's a romantic relationship, that's basically everything ever. It must be a metaphor. So I like thinking of it in terms of like, oh, it's a metaphor for like the relationship with yourself. Or even if you are in the mindset where you're thinking, oh, romantic relationships and it's on my brain, you like see it in that way. He's also like struggled a lot with like depression. So it's a lot about like finding happiness overall within himself. And also like religious overtones where he's kind of saw religion out quite a few times in his life, but again I kind of can see that as like being just like a metaphor for like happiness and spirituality. Like that's why he's like seeking those things. So yeah, I just really like it. I think it's got a really good rhythm to poetry. I think as well it's just because it's like poetry, you can read it like over and over again, and obviously it's like each poem is quite short, it's not the whole book, so you can kind of dip in and out of it. So I feel like I've just read it a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's definite connections there, aren't there? Because, I mean, he's not alive now, so we don't know if maybe he found his, the happiness on the other side, but that reflection, that continued reflection into his way of being is very akin to what your man's doing, sitting there, isn't he? He's just looking back at those moments of his life. So, yeah, I mean, I can dig it. Music, then?
Yeah, so my favourite album, is that what you're going to ask?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Is Graceland by Paul Simon, just because I think it's got this really good mix of kind of like happiness and sadness, because when he wrote it, he's going through a divorce, so that's a lot of the lyrics, but it's a lot of the music in it is like Afro BE. I don't really want to say the name right, but like African music. So, and it's quite like fun and jaunty and like upbeat. It's got this like element of like just kind of like dancing but crying at the same time, which I really, really like. That like mix of these two like worlds in it. So I just really, really like that.
That's a great shout. I think you're...
Yeah. Do you like it? Do you like that album?
Yeah, well, I've got it on vinyl. I've always liked it. I remember when it came out because it reminds me of like listening to it, because I think I was like at middle school when it came out or something. So I've always liked it. And when you put it on, you're quite right. Like the songs and the tunes just make you feel upbeat because they're really like up tempo, the vibe of the Afrobeat sound and all that kind of thing. And like you say, there's quite a poignancy to a lot of the lyrics for sure. You're also not the only person I've had on here who has had that as their favourite album. So I think collectively that places it as a good point. I'll have to get back to you on who the other person was, but I think that's
I'd like to know.
I mean, do you listen to music when you're working or anything?
So I do have. It's not necessarily that I'll listen when I'm working. Maybe yeah. I mean, most of the time, maybe yeah. But not always. But it's like I'll be working on a project and then I'll be listening to music and I'll be writing down, because I like to include like text in my work. I like to like write things, and a lot of times they'll either be like direct from a song or like a poem or something, or they'll be like kind of like I've changed it, like, but inspired by that, a lot of the writing. So then I'll just write down and it'll be like a lot about like just depression and happiness and finding yourself and that kind of thing. And I just think, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. Like, I think in the man one, I have a few, well, I think actually in the man on the chair, I don't think I included any writing in it, because I think that I kind of wanted to give myself more of a chance with Hand and Lock, right? And I felt that my writing kind of was too depressing.
Right.
So I kind of didn't include it. But in the piece that I did before that I entered the year before, there was more writing on it. And I think I remember there being like a talking heads, like, what have I done kind of thing. And then more stuff from like Lennon Cohen, like one of them about him, like, I can't live like this, that kind of thing. So like just kind of that, like things that are just sure enough to have kind of some kind of applicability to everyone at any time. Do you know, like you can kind of like read it and fill in the gaps, but they kind of like give in a story, a bit of a story and a bit of a state of mind, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'd say music is really influential in my work. I don't listen to the broadest range, so I kind of obsessively listen to the same ones over and over again, like a kind of like, oh yeah. So yeah, so like I've had a few artists, but yeah, definitely Lennon Cohen is someone I come back to a lot throughout my work. And yeah.
There's a band that I really like that are called Tinder Sticks. And
I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, I think you'll dig it, right? It's
Tinder Sticks.
Yeah, and they've been around for a long time. The guy's called Stuart somebody.
Before Tinder or after?
Before, thankfully. It's kind of like, it's beautiful, you know, like Beautiful Decay. Sometimes the music feels like that. It's kind of orchestral, but sometimes it sounds a bit wrong. Have you ever seen the TV program?
Oh, like a bit dissonant.
Sort of, yeah. In the same way, like Anthony and the Johnsons or Onoe and the Johnsons, there's something in there as well about like the poignancy of the way things are sung. It just sounds like a dying flower would be if it was musical or something.
Yeah, I think I know. I'm terrible with names and relating the names to the thing, but I think is Anthony and the Johnson really, really depressing, and then in recent years they came out as trans.
Yeah. So now they're known as like a Noe or something
I
like
loved them. I would listen to them so much. I remember a boyfriend to me at the time going like, the reason why you're depressed is because you keep listening to depressing music. Stop listening to Anthony and the Johnsons. And then another boyfriend a few years previously was like, you keep listening to Johnny Flynn's like album, that's why you're so depressed. And I'm like, but it's so good. It's like rubbing a sore gum. Like, it's not helping, but it feels good to kind of just like wallow in it and just like, oh.
You're going to love Tinder Sticks in that case then.
I'll definitely listen to them.
I don't know if you would ever remember Shooting Stars, this like quiz show that Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer used to do.
Yeah.
He'd do this thing like a pub singer style where he'd sing a song and he'd be singing it like this, a little pub singer style. Right?
I know what you mean.
The lead singer of Tinder Sticks, his voice sounds a bit like that, right? So he's singing these songs and they sound a bit like this, but you've got like this poignant orchestral music. He's talking about, I don't know, his grandma's fading memory or something or other. Like, I think you'll love it. I think those are all the kind of things that you'll find joy from or whatever.
I love as well when there's songs and they're actually brave enough to write about something that's not love. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, they're writing about something different here. They're saying something different. Like, it's just like, oh, that sounds interesting. I like that you're saying it's like orchestral as well.
Yeah, really. You know, when you get like that kind of cinematic orchestra sound that sometimes in big Western films, they have a lot of it, a bit of strings and all those sorts of things. It's really good. But it's almost like a string quartet playing alongside. A bit like, have you ever listened to Gabriel's? Gabriels are a band where there's this like the main.
Are they newer and like recent?
Yeah,
More,
they did an
yeah,
album
okay, I
called
think
like
they ring the bell.
Love and Hate in a Different Time, and he's like a gospel singer, but the two producers are, one of them is an orchestral trained person, the other one's an electronic person, so they have that fusion of like jazzy soulful singing and then violins and then beats and stuff, you know. It's just like,
Yeah. Do you know Black Country New Road?
I do not know that.
Oh, okay. Well, they're one of my other favourite bands, and that was like my second favourite album. I just feel like the way they put it together is orchestra, because they're all trained at like, do you know the one where all the like Brit school people go, like a kind of conservatoire in London? I can't remember what it's called. They're all like trained from there, so they're all like proper musicians. But like the first album, they're a lot more like punk and DIY. And I remember thinking like, oh, the guy's not a good sax player. And I'd seen like, I kind of looked into his history, and like he was a bass player and then he just started playing sax in there. But actually, no, he is a good sax player. He's just playing purposely bad. I play flute and sax, right? And I try and do that now. It's hard. It's hard to kind of get the confidence to do it. But I'm not saying that I'm an amazing player. So sometimes it's just like the limit of my own ability. But like I like that kind of element of then like, oh, let's put this in and it's bad. But then overall, everything is still really good. Like they've got space for stuff. Do you know, like space in the songs and like, you know, that kind of like that building and yeah, I like that kind of stuff.
I've written them down. What I find is that Tinder Sticks is pretty good for like listening to, Anthony Johnson as well. Pretty good to listen to if you're driving or something, but not when you're doing emails. For me, I definitely need to go for some kind of soulful house music if I want to get work done. Otherwise, I'm just going to every now and again just look out the window for a couple of minutes, have a little think. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not great productivity music.
Yeah, it's like a bit more like soul searching point.
I'm worried about what the answer is going to be here. Do you have a favourite film? Is it depressing?
So it's going to be, I really, really love Charlie Kaufman, and I'm going to say it's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is the lightest one. It's the most happy, well, I mean, it's not, it's about a breakup, right? So it's about a breakup. Have you watched it?
Yeah, a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah. But so like, they're going through a breakup, aren't they? I'll just describe it for anyone else. They're going through a breakup and they've been given the choice. It's almost like it's kind of set in like a world similar to our world, a bit dystopian, but it's a bit sci-fi because they're given the option to wipe your memory of that loved one. So it's like Jim Carrey, and he decides to like wipe his memory because he's in such heartbreak that he can't like think he can live without this person. So he's like, okay, I'm going to wipe the memory, which just opens up like so many interesting questions. Like, if you were given that option, would you do it? Like, in that heartbreak, would you wipe the memory? Because it's like, it's so easy to kind of like say, yeah, but you're wiping yourself as well. Like, he's wiping the memory, and it's shown like throughout the film, like he goes, like he gets put into like, it's like he's asleep and it's almost like he goes into a dream world, but the dream is like all his memories and he's in them and they're all being like destroyed. So it's like a visual representation of what's kind of happening. But like, it's like, would you choose that? Because you're kind of destroying that whole memory, and then you're destroying like any kind of growth that you're going to get from that. Which I think is really interesting. And I was also thinking about it before, and I was like, obviously, like, given that element of like, oh, would you do it? It seems like surreal, like, because it's like a sci-fi thing. We don't have a thing that's going to wipe our memories, and probably not in our lifetime. But actually, when you think about it, over time, your memory gets wiped. If you don't revisit memories, they get wiped anyway. So really, over time, that does naturally happen. You have to think, oh, should I sit down and keep thinking about this person and all the times we did all these nice things and all the times we did all these bad things? Plus, in it, it's like good memories and bad memories. And he's, I think at first, I've not watched the film in years. I'm going to rewatch it, actually. He's like seeing her as just bad. And I think it ties in well with the idea of object constancy. Like, because he's upset, he's heartbroken, he's just focusing on all the bad things because can't separate it in his brain. He's just seeing like her as bad. But actually then when he starts wiping the memories, there's lots of like really nice intimate moments that they have. And then I just like how it's set. I like that they've got like elements of it, kind of almost, you feel like it's a bit of a movie set because they're kind of set in these dream world memories, where like the other part of it is kind of in the real world. So I like that kind of like how it is. It's one where that I love a lot of Charlie Kaufman films, because it's about like introspection and identity, and like thinking like about like reality and like what is reality and that kind of stuff. Like I love like Being John Malkovich, Cine Doctor New York, based on like the idea like what is reality. But when you like think about it, everything is so viewed with your own emotions and where you are at the time. Reality can change. Like we do experience it where reality can change. So then it's like, what is reality? Do you know? Because it's like, there's no certain, because it depends on so many factors. So I just find stuff like that like really interesting. I love that it's his whole personality, this heartbreak and that kind of thing. Yeah, I really like that film.
I think you've made me think I need to go and watch it. I haven't watched it in a long time. But yeah, that thing of you look back and you think, that person was a complete bastard. And then you go, but I fell in love with that person and they weren't a bastard then, you know, and it's that thing, isn't it? It's just like curating the past.
Because he's getting his mind wiped, right? And then he decides, I don't want to wipe you. So he's like chasing her, and she's being removed from all these scenes, but he's like chasing her to try and like keep her in the memory. To like, yeah, no, I don't know, I just love it. And then I think it's a bit like, because it's like Scarlett Johansson, who's a bit like a manic pixie dream girl, but then at one bit I think she's something like, everyone thinks I'm such a concept, but actually I'm, because it's written from Jim Carrey's point of view, so he's like male protagonist and she's like the second character, and it's like, but I'm just an effed up girl looking for my own peace of mind, don't kind of assign me yours kind of thing. And I think it's just quite a strong like breakthrough of like, oh, like seeing the other side and going like, when you're through a breakup, you're in your own side and you try and think of the other person's, but it's hard, but you're into your own side. But I think it just shows really well like the other person's side of it. Do you know what I mean? The other person.
I'll give you another good perspective on that, right? When you become a parent, you realise that parents are just making this shit up as they go along, and that your parents were doing that. They weren't like perfect. They weren't gods and goddesses. They were doing the best that they could, because by Christ, you're doing the best that you can, you know? And I think it's quite interesting. I've done a lot of reflecting on that in terms of like my dad and the kind of dad he was, and then the kind of dad I am, and just going, shit, yeah, I mean, we're all flawed, but he was doing the best he could, you know? You're just like, oh. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny like how stuff like that kind of sticks in your mind. I always remember like growing up, my dad one time saying it, and it's like funny different memories, and he said one time, oh, me and my sister were singing, and he said, you can't sing, you have a terrible voice. And I was literally like 6 or something, and it's just perfecting you forever. And I remember a few years ago I brought it up because I decided that I wanted to become a singer, but I can't sing, it wasn't good. I was just like, I'll just try it, I'm a punk, I don't need to be good, I just need the confidence. And I kept like sending them recordings of me singing, and then I talked about that one time, and he said, oh my god, that's a horrible thing to say, I can't believe I said that.
Yeah.
But like to me, I was just like, oh, I'm a bad singer. Like, oh my God, even though really you shouldn't sing just because I didn't want to be a singer. I was just singing just for fun. Like, and it sucked the fun out of it.
It's such a word. I don't think you can't go into it too much. But like, for instance, I was trying to get Flora, our oldest, to write some thank you letters. Like Annie, our youngest, she's 6. She'll sit down. She'll bang the letters out. That's the kind of girl she is. Flora's very different. If Flora doesn't want to do the letter, it's not going to get done. It's going to be really hard to do it. And we were coaching her on doing it. And we're like 35 minutes in of trying to like push soup up a hill. Like it's an impossible task or whatever. And I just lost my shit. And I look back now and I think, oh man, that's going to be a memory. That is. Do you know what I mean? It's just,
yeah.
You're just like, oh.
No, I don't think it. I think that's just like an odd one.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, the problem is you can't overthink it, you know, because we all do it. We all make those memories or whatever.
Plus, it sounds like you give it so much thought to like.
I think the problem is like the first time you do it, or like the first time you ever accidentally hurt your kid. Or I remember the first time we got Flora, we went on a walk with Flora when she was like 6 months old and she got sunburned, and how much we beat ourselves up over that. And now, I don't know, she bangs her head against the wall. We don't really care.
Yeah.
So you can overanalyze these things quite a lot. We do care, by the way, head injuries. Is there an interesting fact that not a lot of people know about Charlotte Wood?
Yeah, I'm probably just going to say, well, although I did say this before anyway, but I'll just say that I play flute and sax, but I think that kind of does play a lot into the other areas of my life as well. I think it's given me like a lot of fun, a lot of like outlet in recent years. I think as well with doing kind of embroidery work, I don't know if you're like this, but I kind of, even though I love it, I love embroidery, I view it as work, and I don't view it as like a recreational hobby. And that is kind of like fled on to like any other kind of crafts. So I don't have other crafts that I do. I kind of view like all crafts as like so akin to like work in my own creative process that like my brain's too switched on. I'm not like separating and doing something else. So I find that like playing in bands is quite like separate in that way. It's like a really fun like hobby to do. I've recently in the last year I went on tour. But actually I also played my first gigs in the bands in the last year because I'd been doing it for about 5 years. I played music when I was younger, but then I just had a massive gap. And then for about 5 years I was in bands, and then I'd move away or it didn't work out musically, and I'd never got to that stage of like performing live. And then in the last year I'd kind of have got that, and it's just been like really, really good. It's really fun, and it's as fun as they make it out to be. You know, like being on stage, like it's terrifying, but it's like whoa.
Yeah, it's really. What kind of music does the band play? What like genres?
So there's two. One is a country band, so it's marketed as a country band, but it's a lot like the influences are a lot of kind of like, I'm going to class it as dad rock.
I can understand that,
you know,
being
like
a dad.
That kind of like, yeah, that like, I don't know, yeah, that kind of like 70s rock kind, yeah, like I think stuff like and then like Black Sabbath and stuff. I don't really want, it's not all my musical taste. I don't want to kind of like.
Do you play the flute in that? I'm trying to work out which instrument you would go for in that.
So I play both. I do play the flute more because I'm more comfortable on it. Also, the sax is a transposing instrument, which means it's in a different key. So it takes like a lot more working out to like fit in with the band. It's like fine when you're playing on your own, it doesn't matter. But when you have to fit in with other people, it's like you're speaking a different language. So you've got to like kind of translate everything. So yeah, and it does fit in, like they do try and do it so that it kind of fits in. Plus in the past, I'd been very much like, not that I'm the star, but you know, the flute and the sax, the melodic instruments, right? So you kind of are playing the melody. Plus I didn't come up through like the traditional, like I'm playing a guitar, I'm listening to rock music and I'm in a band. I came up through I'm classically trained to play this like back orchestra music. Do you know what I mean? Like that's where I came from. So I was like playing in a completely different way. So for the first few years, I was just kind of improvising in a scale, which is still fine to do, and not really playing along that well with the music, where in recent years I've gotten better at playing to the chord structure. So my playing's got a lot more better and it fits in more as the background overall. Do you know, with like, the odd solo, rather than I'm like complimenting what other people are playing, rather than like tooting my own horn kind of thing. Like doing something
you literally can do.
Yeah, so it does fit in better. And then the other band I'm in is like a kind of prog rock psych band, but it's quite well orchestrated, like overall I feel like, and there's an emphasis on kind of building things up and stripping things back. So I think I like a lot of the kind of like musical kind of devices they do to make the music interesting. They do a lot of interesting keys as well, and like kind of bluesy keys and accidental keys and interesting time signatures. Like we have one song where it's in like the waltz kind of rhythm. I think it's like 2-3 or 6? I don't want to sound like, I can't remember now. And so it's in a different time signature. And I'd always liked the idea of playing like that, and then, you know, like building up the skill. I mean, I don't always know if I'm definitely playing in the time signature still, or, but yeah, it's really good to kind of like fit it in like that and just like engage your brain in something.
Yeah, I wrote down playing in a different way because I feel like that's a good metaphor for a lot of
playing in a different way.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good metaphor.
Do you know what?
for a
I've
lot
made
of
up
the
this
stuff.
technique.
Yeah.
I've made up this technique as well, and I think it ties in my punk DIY with just like thinking outside the box and other things. And I mean, I don't know the history. There might be other flute players that play it, but I've been like doing, you can do like a trill, that's like a big thing on the flute where you're going like on 2 consecutive notes. But I mean, it's also maybe to do with my skill. There's probably people who are like at the top end can probably do it in the right way. But what I'm doing is like, you can kind of play like 3 octaves on the flute, right? 3 main octaves, but the top octave, like they've got slightly different fingering, especially the top octave. So to kind of do the trill really fast in between all the octaves, you can't really do it. I mean, maybe someone, like I said, like really highly skilled could do. But what I do is I kind of like just do it anyway. I don't care that it might not be in the right note at the top. And also I kind of do a thing where I like overblow on the flute so that I almost can sometimes, I can't all the time, but I can reach like a 5th octave or something. I'm like, oh my God. I think it might be to do like the humidity and stuff like that in the room. So yes, I've been doing that and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like it's going to be my signature.
That's pretty cool. The only thing it's making me think is, you remember back before with the whole conversation about darning feet? Like, just check on YouTube that hasn't already been. Like, oh.
Well, I think that's because I tried to preface it by going, well, okay, if someone was really highly skilled and I don't know the history, maybe they know. Like me years ago would have been like, guys, I've invented something and it's so sick, right? You should hear what I do. And now I'm like, oh yeah, but maybe there are other people in that. Yeah, but I'm like, oh no, I'm like, yeah, I'm still happy with that. I've been like doing it. I'm like, oh yeah, it was really cool. It's really cool. And also just having the confidence, like, because like, I don't think I have the best hearing, or at least I don't have the best faith in my abilities. And I'm very like based on like understanding the theory, right? So in the past, I wouldn't have done it because I would have been so self-conscious that, oh my God, everyone's going to know I'm not playing in key. I'm not playing in tune. Like, I'm not going to be able to hear it. I think it sounds good, but everyone's going to like be like, what the hell is she doing? And now I'm like, no, like, even if it's not, it's still punk. It's still DIY. It's cool. Okay. And if not, it still sounds okay. Why do I have to worry so much about what? No one, I'll do it. And then if people say, look, stop doing that, it's terrible, then I'll stop it. But I won't let my own self-doubt stop me from doing it if I think it sounds okay.
Yeah. The day someone comes and tells you to stop is the day you can think about it. But until then, just go for it, isn't it?
Yeah, which I wouldn't have done in the past. I would have been like, oh, no. Like,
I love it. Charlotte, thanks for having a NeedleXChange with me.
Yeah, I've loved having a chat with you. I wish I had time to ask you more questions to hear more about you and your background and your. It sounds really interesting that you did psychology at uni. I love that.
We've got a whole after show coming up. See, so.
Oh my God!
There we go. There's a hook for anybody. Something Patreon. Something nice one.
Yeah.